80% of those requests and expended the summer grant funds. I have asked about the level of funding this year, and the intention, and I think we're all moving forward with the assumption that the funding will stay the same as last year. So $140,000, although we do need to be mindful of the realities that we're in. So I guess census just is taking place. Those numbers are being crunched. And, you know, we don't know how this semester will continue to unfold. So if hopefully we do not have any unforeseen financial challenges, that there's a hope to proceed with the $140,000 funding level. With regard to summer grants, we had a number of faculty asked us over the last few years about reinstituting partial summer grants. So there was a time when you had a choice of applying for a full or half grant, and which often was, the half grants could be attractive if you had a heavier teaching load and in the summer. And when you apply, you will see that that capability has been re-enabled, reinstituted. And the only thing I would say is that most folks choose to apply for a full grant, and we encourage you to take full advantage, commit the full summer to your scholarly or creative project. And you know, if you decide to commit a shorter amount of time, you need to be very deliberate in your proposal narrative about how the time that you're proposing for the project is well matched to the scope of the project. So things to keep in mind if you are thinking of something other than the usual full grant amount. The specifics, so if you want to apply for a summer grant and or sabbatical, here are the web links on the bottom of this page, and those are Provost website pages, and so there you'll find an info packet that describes all the details and what should go into each section. And there's also calendars there. And I know a lot of us are like, what are the due dates for, what are the important due dates that are coming up in terms of summer grants and sabbaticals? So on the second slide here, I've tried to transcribe some of those important dates. And so if you're applying for a summer grant, the you know, things really get going at the very end of September, beginning of October. So there's your application would actually be due on Monday, October 5th. And if the only thing you might have to do prior to that date is if you are a department chair who's planning to apply for a summer grant, you need to designate a senior colleague to do the chair's level evaluation of your proposal. And you're supposed to identify that person, it's like a week earlier, so September 30th. But from that point forward, like the application is due, the next level is it would be evaluated by the chair, the designee, and then a couple weeks later, same type of review will occur at the dean's level, and then the professional development committee will take all that information, and we're supposed to forward our recommendation to the provost and the associate provost by November 17th. And award notification December 2nd there. Over on the sabbatical side, it's a very similar process. The only, and this is a really important step, is at the onset, there's a due date for notifying about your intent to apply. And you're supposed to notify your department chair and the office of the provost. And the rationale here is that sabbaticals become a staffing question. And you know, if particularly if you were taking a full year sabbatical, that has ramifications on teaching in your department, and how is that going to get staffed? So everyone needs to be thinking about that well in advance. And beyond that point, the schedule is very similar to what we saw for summer grants. So there's if you're a chair, there's a date for designating a senior colleague. There's a due date for the applications, chairs, deans, PDC recommendations. So that's the schedule. And the only thing I noticed about this when I was typing these in yesterday is I noticed that this due date, Friday, November 27th, this is my fault, but that's actually the day after Thanksgiving. So I'll just tell my colleagues on the professional development committee that we're going to get that done before that Friday, so that we don't have to work over the long weekend there. So we don't want to put that off much longer, because the deadline for applicants being notified is soon thereafter. So that's the schedule. When we've done this session in the past, we really try to make it mostly a question and answer session. So that's pretty much it for formal presentation. I don't know if any of my colleagues on the committee would like to weigh in and add to.
Tandy, if you could let me just ask you this. Could you click on the sabbatical one? Because there's some still 2019 dates in there.
Are you talking about the website?
Yeah, if you go to the website and you download that packet.
Yeah.
For sabbatical, on the second page, I think it says 2021 on the cover. But if you go to page, what is it, 5, at the top it says 2019, and I haven't checked yet if if those dates are correct or not.
All right, I will check that. Obviously, we used the packet from the previous year and edited it to create the new one, and it could very well be that we missed an edit.
I just want to check, yeah. I'm looking at like Tuesday, October. I'm just looking to see if they're different, and haven't had a chance to do that yet. But I don't want to get the dates wrong.
I did check the calendar and rechecked it, and then rechecked it again. So I'm pretty sure the calendar dates are correct. So if there's the thing you're seeing may just be a label on that second page. So questions, I don't know if any chairs or deans want to weigh in about things that folks should be thinking about. I always like to encourage our newer faculty to take full advantage of summer grants.
I have a hand up, and it looks like Nahal has a hand up after me. So in the past, summer grants have been available for not necessarily data collection or like actually completing the research, but writing up the research as a result of data collection that's already been completed. I just wonder if you or the committee members could discuss whether that's still something that would be fundable, or if you could provide any extra context around that.
That's a good question. So the one thing to distinguish.
Your audio isn't quite as good as it was on that microphone. Yeah.
I'm having a little techno issue here. I think my mic is what I'm using here, but to hear you, I'm not hearing you over my headphones. So take them off my ears. There we go. So any kind of cost associated with your project that might come after the summer grant term, you know, probably the more appropriate source of funding for that would be the faculty professional development funding, which is administered through each dean's office. And so this would be the same fund that, like, if we were going to travel to a conference, or maybe there there's some sort of charge a publisher wants you to incur on some sort of publication, that is the source of funding to pursue for those sorts of things. It's from the professional development funding standpoint, we have a budget and we need to wrap that budget up coincident with the conclusion of those summer projects. Acknowledging that some projects seem to never end. They just go on and morph into something new, but you know. So does that answer the question?
No, not exactly. I think I might not have been totally clear on that. I think I'm basically asking, can we be funded to just write a manuscript for publication?
So that would actually be for example, the summer grant project.
Yeah. I know that my past two, the proposal was, I'm going to write this project. I've already collected the data, done the project and everything. What I am proposing is to write this manuscript for publication over the summer, and those have been funded without a problem. There's no cost associated with it.
Okay.
So, I was wondering if that's still
Tandy? Tandy?
Yes.
I would just put in, as a response to Michael's question, that he's talking about something that's highly variable among different disciplines. And so anyone who's going to submit a proposal like that would be well advised to describe very clearly what's involved in the writing up of the research that's already been done in order to justify the application for either a half a grant or a full grant.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Yes, Chaz?
Tandy, I had my hand up.
Oh, okay. Mayhale?
Sorry, I've been teaching on Zoom all week, so I'm like very adept with the hand raising and whatever. So I have two questions. One is, those of us coming back from sabbatical are wondering, is there a specific sabbatical report form, or is it the same as the summer grant report form where we just write 2 pages about what we did? So that's question number one, sabbatical report form. Question number two, and I raised this before, and you probably won't have a clear answer, but for those of us who travel, the real issue with summer grants is, will we be able to do our travel? I work on Ukraine. They just closed the border to foreigners again. So I have a summer grant proposal, right? Finishing my book, but I don't know that I'm going to be able to do it. And then it would just be sitting in DeLand writing. So in the summer grant, do I kind of negotiate that, right? Here's plan A and plan B, right? In 1,700 words. And kind of how do we deal with that when there's so much that's unknown about what the world's going to look like next June?
Yeah, I mean, let me attempt to answer your second question. Yeah, I mean, this is the challenge we all face, and I don't have a perfect solution, but what you just described is attempt to describe a backup plan.
Yeah. Okay.
As part of your proposal. And we had several summer grant recipients this last cycle who had, whose projects depended on travel, and they were able to come back with some alternative activities that would support the same project.
Okay.
And we got through it. So if you can do that in some fashion in the proposal narrative,
okay,
that would really helpful. Your first question, I know there used to be instructions somewhere on the Associate Provost's web pages about how to compose and format summer grant reports and sabbatical reports. I admit I have not looked at them. Since that's all stuff that sort of happens post-award, which has primarily been handled through the Provost's office. But I would be happy to look into that and make sure those instructions are still provided.
Sure, and if it's different for sabbatical because it was a longer period. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll check that out, and I'll send you a message.
Thank you.
All right. Chaz, you had your hand up.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Great. So my question is similar to Mayhill's, but with a different emphasis. I'm curious about the supplemental budget. So it says specific, detailed, and credible estimates of project expenses related to the activities done. I'm planning on applying for travel funding through the supplemental budget, but several things. One, I don't know what the state of travel will be like next year. And secondly, many of the opportunities that I apply for, so like music festivals and that kind of thing, their applications don't happen until like February. So it's hard for me to know, I don't know where I'm going to go. I can give a specific, credible estimate about all of that, but the timeline just doesn't really match with my field. So can you give me some advice about that?
Yeah, so for those of you who are relatively new to summer grants, there's a stipend, basically a stipend payment that is issued to you, like salary. And but you also have the option of requesting up to $2,000 extra to offset costs, direct costs for your project. And indeed, for folks that are doing projects that require travel during the summer, that you can ask to offset travel costs. And so Chaz, you're in the same boat as a lot of people when we're submitting requests for funding for travel, that we have to estimate, as best we can, what registration fees are going to be, what travel fees are going to be. And if it sounds like what you're saying, you may not even know quite what the destination is going to be yet. I just think you do the best you can. And again, as long as those costs are going to be incurred during the summer while you're doing the summer grant work, you can certainly make a request for supplemental funding. But if it's something that's going to come later, you would utilize the faculty professional development funding through the dean's office.
Okay, so the timeline is really, and the detail of the budget proposal is what sounds like is really important.
Pete, I'm going to ask some of my colleagues, maybe Carolyn or someone. I've got so much going on here. I'm trying to watch people's hands, and I can't see the chat box, keep track of it. So if one of my committee members wants to weigh in about some of the questions that are coming in on chat, please do. But Pete, I saw you waving toward the camera.
Yeah, so could you inform us a little bit about the possibilities or being careful about trying to link, back-to-back a sabbatical and a summer grant? So, I have multiple projects that I'm thinking about. So I have a deadline July 1st that I'm hoping to use summer grant for, but then transition possibly into a different project. And so I understand they need to kind of be separate, obviously separate applications, but is the content, can they be linked or related or not?
Yeah, and what you are describing, it's not an uncommon occurrence for folks to apply for back-to-back sabbatical summer grants. And it would be nice if they were entirely different projects, but often that just doesn't align well with people's sort of trajectory in their scholarship. And so there does need to be a very clear defining line about what I'm doing during the summer and what I'm doing in the sabbatical, or vice versa. I always like to see a timeline with goals and action items. This is what I will be doing, and how that all is building toward the project. So thank you.
Hey, Tandy, you were asking about the chat questions or whatever. There are a couple of questions that I noticed early up on the list. I'm kind of scrolling through those. You've been asked about if you could comment on the suitable activities for sabbatical and whether there are priorities in terms of what kind of activities with sabbaticals tend to be encouraged, and a related question to whether or not curriculum development issues are suitable for sabbatical. That's probably the biggest question that I've come across in the chat.
Okay. So the curriculum development, I think there's a lot of opinions out there about what is considered suitable. Something that, like a teaching approach that is considered novel, that you are developing and testing, you know, that's definitely scholarship, you know, by the Boyer definition, and particularly if it has a probability of leading to publication and other forms of dissemination. So, you know, I've heard it asked, you know, or I've had people ask, you know, what's the difference between pedagogical scholarship or just course development, which we all have to do every time we put together a new course. And, you know, so what distinguishes one from the other? And if anybody would like to weigh in with their opinion about that, we don't want to be overly prescriptive about what is suitable, what may not be suitable. But,
Tandy, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Barbara. Just for people to know, on page 2 of the summer grant info packet, under the paragraph on purpose, it states, and I quote, "Summer grant funds are not normally awarded for course development unless the project has an application beyond the classroom, as, for example, an article on pedagogy." End of quote. So it's succinct, but it sort of makes the differentiation between what is suitable and what isn't.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. That's helpful. That's very helpful. Other questions? And Carolyn, you had mentioned a few things there. I may have only hit the last one. There are other themes that were being.
Well, the other part of the question is just advice for somebody who has never applied for a sabbatical at all, the very first time an application, and some suggestions on maybe the scope or range of activities that are suitable to qualify for a sabbatical.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the information packet, and on the last page there's a rubric, and our committee uses that rubric when we go through and think about projects that are proposed. And you know, you want to think about what sort of project and how exactly should I describe that project in the proposal. You want to do so in such a way that you hit each of those rubric categories. And you know, projects that are going to score well are going to be ones that really have a probability of moving a faculty member along in their scholarly trajectory, moving them forward, and that have a, you know, high probability of dissemination, either through publication, presentations, and you know, this, as somebody's already said today, what we do as faculty differs wildly from department to school, and you know, so it's as measured by your peers that you work with. You know, is this considered a scholarly or creative pursuit? I don't know if that answered anybody's question, but
Tandy, there was a question about summer grants that came to me about, are there restrictions on how that grant can be used, in the sense of whether or not you have to document with that summer grant, you know, how those funds were used, or is that just a straight stipend that you don't have to actually detail how you actually spent that grant.
Yeah, so the stipend is a payment for time invested. So there's no reporting. I mean, there is a summer grant report to write, but there's no accounting paperwork that has to be done there. On the other hand, the supplemental expenses, if you are approved for those are intended to be reimbursements for costs that you described in the proposal. And so to be clear about that, because there has been some misunderstanding about the supplemental expenses in the past, that it's not like a expense fund that you can just spend however you wish. That it's just an arrangement that, yes, Stetson agrees to reimburse you for this particular type of travel that you described in your proposal, or for the supplies, laboratory supplies that you needed to buy in advance to move a project forward in the laboratory. Just to give you a few examples. So for those, the accounting will happen in the form of you submitting a receipt for reimbursement to the provost office. So.
Tandy, we're being asked where people might find archived examples of sabbaticals that have been approved. Are those in the library or online?
Well, we certainly had access to those. Sue, are you present and available to speak to that?
Can you hear me, Tandy?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, we do have some in the library. It's a little bit convoluted to get to on the OneDrive. I can send out instructions in all the places that Tandy's posting information. I should warn you, though, that we just post what we receive from I think it comes out of the Associate Provost's office, so they may not be completely up to date. Everything we have is up there, but it's I don't remember getting any of the ones from last year, for example, so we have not posted those. But I will provide directions to Tandy that he can disseminate on how to look at some previous proposals.
Thank you, Sue. I always make this or put this advice out there every year that, you know, it's because our scholarship, our creative work differs so wildly from different places on campus, that the safest thing to do is to take advantage of your colleagues who have successfully applied for summer grants and sabbaticals. So if you can get that proposal written before the deadline and share it with someone in your department or someone in your division that has done this sort of thing before, you know, they could probably give you some good feedback. On that same topic, this is described in the info packet, but you want to not be overly technical in your description of your project. So if, you know, for example, most of the members of the professional development committee are not physicists. In fact, none of them are. So I sort of am, but you know, so if you're a physicist describing some sort of novel lab experiment, you want to write it so that anybody can understand what it is you're trying to do and why it's important. And you know, same thing if you're a musician and you're composing something, you know, explain that so that anyone can understand why it's significant, important.
Hey, Tandy, I just wanted to tell you too, that's Kathy, those dates aren't right on that form because it says Tuesday, October 1st, and Tuesday is not October 1st.
I wonder if you're
it's the
looking
wrong
at
one.
Yeah,
Well,
I wonder if
it says 20 to 21.
Yeah.
Submission procedures for calendar for sabbatical leaves, unless the wrong ones are up there. You understand what I'm saying? Or it hasn't been changed yet?
So the website was recently updated. We included the info packets from previous years toward the bottom of the web page, because people still need to know what the due dates are for like the sabbatical report.
Okay,
so
I just downloaded a different one. Yeah, I'm looking at a different one now. But there's more than one.
Yeah, so make sure the current one should be the info packet listed at the top, farmost top of the page.
Okay.
Yeah, and Chris, you, I don't know if there's any way to, when you have a little time, maybe go back and make the current one in mega font or something so that it stands out.
I think it did get changed because I downloaded the one from the top before and it was a little bit different, but I just downloaded the one from the bottom too.
Okay.
I got it now.
Hey, Tandy?
I think it's right.
Tandy?
Yes.
I'd like to interject here.
Sure.
I want to make sure you get this one from, there's a request. Tandy, please send out the information about both summer grant and sabbatical completion reports to everyone with a link to the description of format, etc. And if we are still supposed to submit it to the email address listed on the packet.
Thank you, Harry. And I would say that you would submit that report according to the instructions in the info packet under which you submitted. And so I think all those reports go through the Associate Provost's office and they're archived. And just as a general rule, the Professional Development Committee does not handle the administrative work of post-award work. I'm not saying that we're not trying to be lazy or anything, but it's actually probably not a good tactic because the composition of our committee changes each year, and there needs to be someone watching the long game when it comes to these reports, making sure they're submitted. Like if you're applying for a sabbatical, a year-long sabbatical this year, well, that sabbatical is going to occur a year from now, and then your report's going to be due the following year. And you know, so this committee could look completely different then. So there is a rationale for why that needs to be administered through the provost office. Any other questions? Everything seemed to get real quiet.
Well, here's one. Will the slides be available after the meeting?
I could certainly distribute this 2-page PowerPoint. Really all that PowerPoint is doing is, so the announcement that was sent out for this session has the web links to the summer grant and sabbatical application pages. So I would say just go there, and then all the calendar dates are in those info packets. So you should already have that information available, but we could certainly redistribute it. And I don't know, Harry, if you want to, do we want to maybe post some of that up on the Brown Center site?
I had actually mentioned that I could do that. I could take the PowerPoint slides and put it as posted as on the blog. This session's also being recorded.
Yes.
So there will be in a day or so up here, you know, it'll be available on the YouTube channel for the Brown Center as an entry.
Cool. All right. Other folks, questions? If not, can go eat some lunch. All right.
There's a question for Chris. Crit, could you share the link in the chat box? I'll have to look into that as soon as we find it. If it's there, we'll find it and then we'll post it on the blog. Okay, Kushbu.
Yeah, I'll see if I can actually cut and paste those in right now. right, anyone else? Okay, I was able to, I just put the summer grant one up, and I'm getting ready to post the sabbatical one as well in the chat box. So there we go. There's the corresponding sabbatical one. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. If there's no other questions, I guess we will.
Thank you, Tandy.
Move along.
Thank you, committee members, PDC committee members. Everybody have a nice day.
Thank you, Harry. And again, if questions come up, send us an email. Happy to address them.